Hello and welcome to a big Sugar Bowl special here on Lantern TV. As we were last time with the Michigan game, we're kind of combining things and making it a big time special for a big time game. Yesterday it was announced that Ohio State will be in the first ever college football playoff, facing off against the Alabama Crimson Tide in the Sugar Bowl game. And to talk all about that today, we have our two bastions of sports knowledge once again, as we said last time. Starting to my left with our Assistant Sports Director, Aaron Yerian. How are you today, Aaron?
I am so excited to get started with this. I cannot wait.
And Andrew?
Oh, stupendous. Same as Aaron. Can't wait to break it down.
All right, we have a lot to break down, but before we get started, I want to get the impressions from you guys. When you were watching the college football selection special, what was going through your mind? We'll start with you, Andrew.
Well, I know based on the results of the championship game, there was a lot of debate, TCU, Baylor, who had the, we keep using that term, body of work over and over again. Jeff Long, of course, the chair of the committee. Yeah, I felt like Ohio State had a strong shot based on their performance, but it was still a little bit of a toss-up, some uncertainty. So it was good to see the committee go through their process and award the four, who they deem to be the four best teams at the shot at the playoff.
Yeah, 59-0 in that Big Ten championship game against Wisconsin. What was your impression when they announced?
Well, that's a pretty impressive win to start off with, as mentioned. And as soon as I saw Florida State announce number 3, based on going through how the selection committee does the rounds of voting and everything, I just knew that there was no way that they could not put Baylor in front of TCU, and I just knew that it opened the door for Ohio State to be number 4. So I was actually a little prematurely celebrating and getting a little excited to see Ohio State get to the number 4 spot.
Well, in the hours following the big announcement, Urban Meyer and some players met at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center to discuss what they were feeling after the big news.
Gene actually came over to my house. We sat there, and I kept looking. I said, "What do you got?" And he goes, "The commissioner doesn't even know." And I was like, "Come on." I didn't, come on. And I thought he was going to wink or give me one a thumbs up like I've done in the past. And, we don't know anything. One of those. And it wasn't that at all.
The Ohio State flash there.
I didn't see it. I looked down for a second because I just, get a little extra juice if it hit, because I thought they'd at least go to a commercial break or something, and it all just popped up, and everybody went nuts in the house.
I think it's, it's awesome, especially just, again, going back, just being in the top 4 is the first time it's ever happened in college football history, so we are in, we made history just by making the top 4.
Yeah.
This game is going to be exciting, it's going to be hard fought with 2 great coaches going head-to-head and 2 great teams going head-to-head.
All right, well, those were their impressions from the big announcement on Sunday afternoon, And now we're going to break it down X's and O's style, Ohio State versus Alabama. And we're going to start with you, Andrew. You studied the Ohio State offense against this Alabama D. Talk to us about what you expect and what you saw from Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game that's going to kind of leapfrog them into this big matchup.
Yes, Hayden, as you said, Ohio State's offense, Bama's defense. It's the matchup. I think we as analysts of this Buckeye team maybe could have hoped for as the true test of whether they've really arrived. Now, they dealt with a lot of adversity, of course. J.T. Barrett, the injury in the Michigan game, and Cardale Jones was an unproven commodity. Not anymore, because in that Big Ten championship game, he earned his MVP honors. He was outstanding in that game, frankly. 12 of 17 for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns, all of which were receptions by the outstanding senior wide receiver Devin Smith. Ezekiel Elliott, it's been a recurring storyline there, 1,400-yard-plus yardage season, and he was productive on the ground as well. Although, interestingly enough, Curtis Samuel has a higher yards per carry average on the season, but both of them very durable backs. Ohio State, they've got their identity, despite it only being Cardale Jones' first start. They looked efficient. They didn't turn the ball over. And they frankly made Wisconsin's then second-ranked defense look, mediocre at best. So 59-0, as we said. Jones is going to need to continue to play his brand of football. I sort of arrived at the conclusion Saturday when we were talking about the game that he doesn't need to fill Barrett's shoes. He needs to be his own quarterback, and I think he embodied that role very capably on Saturday. As we said, Devin Smith had a breakout game. Outstanding game, good note to go out on in terms of playing against Big Ten competition. But he'll need to have a big game as well against Alabama. Cardale Jones, however, only sacked once. This O-line is crucial to their success, especially against the size that they're going to face against a stout Bama defensive front. So I was actually, one sort of final reflection on that game, I was shocked that Hireman didn't get a reception.
It's true.
In terms of size matchup, it makes sense to me. Jones to Hireman, they're both tall fellas, but they didn't need to turn to the tight end position. So transitioning now to the Bama defense. There's no question they're the #1 team in the country right now. 16.6 points per game allowed, 4th in the country, 11th in total defense, allowing only 312 yards. But those numbers might be deflated a little bit because their out-of-conference competition wasn't very impressive. They did give up 44 points to Auburn, so a little hope for a potent offense for Ohio State to put some points on the board. They've only played 4 true road games. Of course, they lost to Ole Miss, and they are -1 in turnover margin on the season, which kind of surprised me. Yeah, so and basically the point that I wanted to make by saying that, are they a bad turnover-prone offense, or is it just not a very opportunistic defense?
Well, Blake Sims has turned the ball over.
He has, and he had, I believe, 3 picks in the Iron Bowl, but he had a great game against Missouri. So if Sims is on, and of course I know Aaron's going to talk about Amari Cooper, they won't have any trouble putting points on the board. They have 29 team sacks, Bama does. Joey Bosa for Ohio State has more sacks individually than their top 2 sackers. So Ohio State, no slouch defensively either, but the couple names that stick out to me, Jarek Williams at the star. Remember earlier in the season, Aaron, when we talked about Obi Uzoma from Navy?
Yes.
And at the Raider position?
Yes.
He's effectively their sort of nickel. He's their Armani Reeves. So look out for him. He will, the strong side, outside linebacker would come out of play, and they may shuffle him into the mix. But keep an eye on Xavier Dixon. He is their jack linebacker, sort of a hybrid defensive end linebacker. He's huge, 6'3", 268, leads the team in sacks, and he's the only Alabama player with a double-digit number of tackles for loss on the season. He is going to be a monster matchup-wise for Ohio State's offense. So he's got Rashad Frazier size, to give you an example of what we're dealing with that matchup. So final player to mention, strong safety junior Landon Collins. It's going to be a home game for him. He's from New Orleans.
There you go.
He leads the team in interceptions with 3, and as well as in solo and total tackles. So those are some names to watch out for.
All right, we got the Ohio State offense versus the Bama D. Now we're going to flip it. Aaron, you studied the Ohio State defense against that vaunted Bama O.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Alabama, unlike Wisconsin, where with Wisconsin you have the nation's leading rusher, Melvin Gordon, Alabama has a very balanced offensive attack. They had a preseason hire that was very skeptical with a lot of Alabama fans out there, and Lane Kiffin going from USC all the way back to now he's at the offensive coordinator at Alabama after previously being at Tennessee. So kind of interesting little storyline through the season. Blake Sims, very similar storyline to what Ohio State's had to deal with all season. He's a backup quarterback that came in at the beginning. A lot of question marks how he's going to do to replace their previous starter. Comes in, he has a 3,000-yard passing season. He's passed for 26 touchdowns and has only thrown 7 interceptions, which is pretty impressive for a first-time starter on the season. 3 of those interceptions, as previously mentioned by Andrew, were in the Iron Bowl, and that's one of the things that I like to look for when you look to analyze an opponent is if they've played their rival, because that game is always going to be the toughest game, especially in the Iron Bowl against Roll Tide War Eagle. You're always going to get the best look, just like Ohio State and Michigan going into the Big Ten Championship. TJ Yeldon, the tailback in the backfield, one of the 2 running backs to get a lot of carries, over 900 yards rushing on the season, 10 touchdowns. In the Iron Bowl, almost 20 carries. He had 19, so almost like Ezekiel Elliott in the Big Ten Championship, 127 yards rushing. So very impressive resume going into the Sugar Bowl. Amari Cooper, as we said, one of 3 wide receivers named as a finalist, the Blitnikoff. So one of the 3 top receivers in the nation, potential Heisman candidate going into New York City into this break that we're going to have in December. 1,600-plus yards receiving, 14 touchdowns. In the Iron Bowl, he kind of lit it up. He had 13 receptions, 224 yards. He was their star player. if you're looking at an impact player on this offense, that's the one. He's the one that's going to challenge Ohio State's defense. You're not going to see a defensive package like they had with Wisconsin. You're going to see that nickelback roll in. You're going to see Armani Reeves and Raekwon. It's going to be interesting to see how the safeties move up from being run support essentially to stop TJ Yeldon and shift over to Amari Cooper to play either zone or man. So you could see another receiver on Alabama's offense emerge on come New Year's Day. So that's pretty much, there you have it.
All right, well, we got both sides of the ball now, but I got to study the intangibles, and what better intangibles could you get than Urban Meyer versus Nick Saban, the clash of arguably the two biggest name head coaches in college football. Both have incredible resumes, and honestly, I think that's the key to this game, is which coach is going to come out and which coach is going to win this chess match, because both sides have so much talent. Both sides are have played incredibly down the stretch. Can Urban get it done against Nick Saban as a Big Ten coach as opposed to an SEC coach? We saw him get it done in Florida. Can he get it done with the Buckeyes against Alabama? That's what this whole matchup is all about to me.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to talk for a second, or we are going to hear for a second from Urban Meyer, who explained what he's feeling going into this matchup with the Crimson Tide.
We've had, I'm not sure how many times he played, I think 2 or 3 times. 2 in the championship game. And those were I remember every snap. They were, 08 was one of the best football games of all time. 09, they beat us and beat us soundly, and we didn't play very well. So, you know, I think we're a building program. They're an established program, and our players, we have to be on point to beat this team. I mean, I know exactly. People say, I know exactly what I'm going to see when I flip on the film. A bunch of great football. I know who they recruit. I know the way they coach. They don't have much transition in coaching staff. A little bit different dynamic now on offense, I think, with Lane Kiffin there, who's opened it up a little bit. But they were, you know, I keep hearing that. I said I was there when Julio Jones was there now, and they flipped it around there too. So I know exactly what we're going to see. Excellent special teams, and we have to be on point.
Well, as Urban said, the Buckeyes are going to have to be on point if they want to win this game. But now we head into our predictions segment. Who's going to be first and who's going to say the score? First of all, say the score, and then your big playmakers, key playmakers for each team. We'll start with you, Andrew.
Okay, I am going 35-31 Alabama.
Okay.
I think, and the reason I chose a number that's divisible by 7 for Alabama is because that is a segue into my key player for Alabama. Adam Griffith, their field goal kicker, their place kicker, has to have a good game. He can't be the special teams woe guy because when he missed 2 field goals this season, can you guess which game it was?
Ole Miss.
It was their loss. So Adam Griffith has to not be a liability for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But as I said, 35, I don't think that Blake Sims lets up in terms of the offensive momentum that he mounted playing Missouri. Very tough matchup, frankly. Yeah, I think Ohio State will do very well. I don't think Cardale Jones will turn the ball over. If a fumble happens, I see it unfortunately maybe coming in the special teams game. Sort of, you know, we talked about the coaching matchup. Both of these guys ping on special teams. And I think while Urban Meyer has the edge, I think one turnover, you know, losing that turnover battle by even just 1 could be enough to give Bama the edge. Now, so I mentioned Adam Griffith for the Tide. My key contributor, I'm a little torn. It's a tie, kind of. The guys that both lead this team in interceptions, Duran Grant, the captain, and Von Bell. They both have 5 picks on the year, and they total between them have 25 passes defended. If they struggle, especially Duran Grant matching up against Amari Cooper, Ohio State could be in for a troubling conclusion to that game.
All right, Aaron, it's your turn, buddy.
49-45. Ohio State.
Ooh.
Wow.
I picked a slugfest. It's going to be a shootout. You have these 2 high-powered offenses. You have 2 defenses that are arguably in the top 20 in the nation. They're not bad defenses, but they're the bend, don't break kind of defense. Urban Meyer said it throughout the entire season that I challenge every play. Don't give up the big play, but he's okay with giving up 6 yards on a 1st and 10 or whatever. So I think it's going to be a shootout down to the final minute. To go back to intangibles a little bit, both of these coaches, Nick Saban from Kent State under Earl Bruce, same coach that Urban Meyer was under when he was in grad school here. I mean, they're very relatable. This is their 4th matchup. They split SEC championships when Urban Meyer was down there. One year he had a great slugfest against Nick Saban. 2008 title game. 2 years later they came back and Nick Saban got his revenge. So the storyline is developing incredibly well because you have Alabama when they played LSU and then they had the rematch in the national championship game. This is the rematch's rematch with a completely different stage on January 1st. But the difference makers, Alabama, I'm glad we didn't pick the same ones. It was kind of exciting. Those were good ones. But Christian Jones, special teams returner for Alabama.
Fantastic pick.
He has great numbers return yards wise. Hasn't broken one for a huge gain, but enough to win the position battle when it comes to either punts or kickoffs. And he's quite honestly one broken tackle away throughout the season from having the touchdown return.
He hasn't hit pay dirt, though, in the return game.
Has not. 0 touchdowns on the season.
And also worth mentioning, he was responsible for the 1 turnover against Ole Miss. He fumbled. So I agree with you. I think it's a great pick. I'm not denigrating your logic at all. But if he struggles, that could be a big chink in Alabama's armor.
As you mentioned with special teams, Ohio State wins that field position battle. Alabama could find themselves, 1st and 10 on the 5-yard line, going the other direction, not in, but trying to dig themselves out.
Right.
Michael Bennett, he had a breakout game in the Big Ten championship. His best game, arguably all season. He's the anchor of the defensive line. Alabama runs between the tackles, straight through the trenches. They're coming right at him. So the run defense starts at Michael Bennett. He's an excellent leader on the defense, communicates well, builds up those around him. I mean, Joey Bosa has to come off the edge to try to get Blake Sims a little rattled, but it's going to be Michael Bennett. I mean, he had the forced fumble that ended up with points off turnovers at the end of the half in the Big Ten championship. If he's challenging Blake Sims and TJ Yeldon in the backfield, it could be a long day, a long, hard day for Alabama. So it'd be interesting to see how they adapt.
I think that's a great point. You mentioned TJ Yeldon is one of 2 running backs, and I think that bears a quick mention. Derrick Henry. They're both over the 900-yard mark. They're both at the 10-touchdown mark. So I love the pick. Michael Bennett and Joey Bosa actually came together as a duo rather than just being 2 guys on the same unit. As you said, the forced fumble and the fumble recovery, it's a microcosm. The Wisconsin game is a microcosm of what they will need to do to find success against that, as you said, vaunted Alabama offense.
All right, well, we're running out of time, so I'm going to make mine real quick. I'm going to go 31-21 Alabama. Okay. My Ohio State player, my key Ohio State player is Duran Grant. If he can stop Amari Cooper, we've seen what Ohio State can do against the run, against Melvin Gordon. If they can stop Blake Sims and stop Amari Cooper, they could definitely win this game. And for Alabama, I'm going to say it's absolutely Amari Cooper. As I said, if he beats Duran, I think the game is essentially who can stop the pass, who can stop the deep pass. If Alabama can stop the deep pass, because Cardale Jones is a way better deep big arm thrower than JT Barrett. He showed it in the Big Ten championship game. Whoever can eliminate the deep pass and can eliminate that passing game is going to win this game, and I think it's going to be Alabama.
Yeah, limiting that number 1 receiver is crucial. I totally agree.
Yep. Well, we are going to see January 1st, 8 p.m. from the Sugar Bowl, the first ever college football playoff matchup, and we're going to be gearing up for that one. So be sure to look out for all of our coverage from New Orleans and enjoy your Christmas break and your holiday break and your Hanukkah. And we'll see you for live from New Orleans. Take care.